The Spanish Inquisition, that infamous tribunal of the Catholic Church, evokes images of torture chambers, burning heretics, and the pervasive reign of fear. But behind the dark curtain of brutality lies a narrative rarely explored, a story not just of persecution but also of complex human emotions, unexpected kindness, and the subtle rebellion of the soul. What if the Inquisition was not merely a machine of terror, but also a stage where some of the most profound struggles of conscience, compassion, and defiance played out? The Inquisition began in 1478, authorized by Pope Sixtus IV at the behest of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain. Its stated goal was to root out heresy, particularly among Jews and Muslims who had converted to Christianity under duress, but who were suspected of secretly practicing their former faiths. Over the centuries, it grew into a formidable institution, its reach extending deep into Spanish society. But the men and women who found themselves entangled in the Inquisition's web were not always its willing agents. Consider the inquisitors themselves, the enforcers of orthodoxy. History often paints them as zealots, devoid of empathy. Yet among their ranks were individuals who wrestled with their consciences. Some took their roles with a heavy heart, caught between their duty to the Church and the evident suffering of those they condemned. For every Torquemada, the Grand Inquisitor notorious for his severity, there were those like Francisco Peña, who openly questioned the morality of torture. Peña's writings reveal a man deeply troubled by the cruelty of his own institution, struggling to reconcile the demands of faith with the dictates of humanity. Even more intriguing are the stories of quiet rebellion within the system. These acts of defiance were not grand uprisings, but subtle gestures that offered a glimmer of resistance. Some officials tasked with investigating heresy would intentionally prolong cases, allowing the accused time to escape or gather evidence for their defense. There were instances of inquisitors deliberately losing incriminating documents or manipulating testimonies to save a life. One such story involves the case of a converso, a Jewish convert to Christianity, accused of secretly practicing Judaism. The evidence against him was damning, and his fate seemed sealed. However, the inquisitor in charge, a man named Luis de Paramo, was moved by the accused's plea that he was only following the traditions of his ancestors, not out of defiance to the Church, but out of love for his heritage. Paramo found a legal loophole, declaring the man's practices a mere cultural custom rather than heresy, and allowed him to go free. This act of mercy, subtle and veiled in legal jargon, was a profound act of resistance against the institution's rigid orthodoxy. The victims of the Inquisition, often portrayed as passive sufferers, also demonstrated remarkable resilience and ingenuity. While many were tortured into confessions, others found ways to subvert the process. Some spoke in cryptic languages or employed theological arguments so complex that the inquisitors, often not scholars themselves, were baffled and had to suspend judgment. There are records of individuals who, knowing they could not escape the physical torment, turned their trials into platforms to preach their own beliefs, sowing seeds of doubt among the spectators. In one famous case, a woman named Maria de Bohorquez, accused of Protestant heresy, used her interrogation sessions to eloquently argue against the excesses of the Church, quoting scripture in Latin and Greek, much to the frustration of her inquisitors. Though she was eventually executed, her words lived on, whispered among those who had heard them, sparking a quiet questioning of the Church's authority. The Spanish Inquisition officially ended in 1834, leaving behind a legacy of fear and repression. Yet its history is not solely one of darkness. It is also a story of those who, within the oppressive machinery of the Inquisition, found ways to assert their humanity. The inquisitors who tempered justice with mercy, the victims who turned their trials into acts of defiance, and the everyday people who subtly resisted the Church's demands all contribute to a more nuanced understanding of this period. The Spanish Inquisition reminds us that even in the darkest times, the human spirit finds ways to endure and resist. It is a testament to the complexity of history and the unexpected places where courage and compassion can be found. The true story of the Inquisition is not just one of fire and sword, but also of the quiet, persistent struggle for dignity and justice, even in the most unlikely of circumstances. Thank you.